Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Pilot Officer Zach O'Brien. We warmly welcome the family of Corporal George Ball, who are watching the live stream of this evening's ceremony. His story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Please sit if you can do so. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Corporal George Ball, MM. George Ball was born in the Adelaide suburb of Cherry Gardens on the 18th of September 1889, the son of George and Isabella Ball. He grew up in Cherry Gardens and attended Cherry Gardens Public School. Shortly after the turn of the century, the family moved to Boulder in Western Australia, where George Sr. took up a job as a miner. The family suffered a terrible blow when Isabella passed away on the 26th of December 1904. By the time the First World War began, Ball was working as a timber cutter. He enlisted at Black Boy Hill on the 24th of September 1914, joining the newly raised 16th Battalion. 3 companies of the battalion were raised in Western Australia, with the 4th was raised in Ball's native state of South Australia. It was not until the companies were brought together in Victoria that the battalion was able to train as a unit for the first time. Ball embarked from Melbourne with his battalion on the 22nd of December 1914 aboard the transport ship Ceramic, bound for Egypt. After months of training in the Egyptian desert, the 16th Battalion sailed to Mudros to prepare for their role in the Gallipoli campaign. The 16th Battalion landed on Gallipoli late in the afternoon of the 25th of April and assisted in consolidating a front line that was still far from secure. A week later, the battalion was sent to attack an Ottoman position known as the Bloody Angle. It suffered heavily, with nearly half its number becoming casualties, and the objective remained in enemy hands. Ball was lightly wounded on the 21st of May and was evacuated to Lemnos for treatment and recovery. He was released from hospital at the beginning of June and appears to have been seconded to the Anzac base on Imbros until November, when he returned to Gallipoli and rejoined his battalion. Ball then remained on Gallipoli until the 16th Battalion was withdrawn in December. With the ending of the Gallipoli campaign, the Australian Imperial Force returned to Egypt in January 1916, where it underwent a period of rest and reorganisation. The 16th Battalion was split, with one half forming the nucleus of the 48th Battalion. Ball remained with the 16th Battalion, however, and in March sailed with his unit for France and the Western Front. Following a brief stint in the nursery sector, the battalion was sent south to the Somme. At the beginning of August, it took part in the fighting for Pozières and then Mouquet Farm. On the 29th of August, Ball was wounded for a second time. He received a shrapnel wound to his buttocks and was evacuated to the rear. It was nearly a month before Ball rejoined his battalion. After enduring the winter of 1916 and 17, the onset of spring saw the German army withdraw to their prepared positions, known as the Hindenburg Line. The 16th Battalion took part in the pursuit. On the 18th of February, Ball was promoted to Lance Corporal. He spent the majority of March sick in hospital with mumps and returned to his battalion just in time to take part in the disastrous First Battle of Bullecourt. The 16th Battalion attacked towards the town of Rencourt, a key defensive position in the Hindenburg Line. Ball's recommendation for the military medal best describes his actions on that day. This non-commissioned officer is brought to notice for his daring courage and initiative during the attack on the Hindenburg front line in front of Rencourt on the morning of 11th of April 1917. When the objectives had been obtained, he led a bombing party along an exposed flank of the second objective and drove the enemy back fully 100 yards. He held on until no further bombs were available. He then attempted to deal with the enemy by charging over the top, but most of his comrades were immediately shot down by machine gun fire. He still held on, however, gathered up German bombs lying about the trenches and returned to the attack. When the end came and all supplies of ammunition were exhausted, he made a dash for freedom across bullet-swept no man's land and called on the men with him to do likewise. He is strongly recommended for high distinction. Ball was duly awarded the military medal for his actions at Bullecourt. At the end of June, he was promoted to corporal. In mid-July, he was transferred to England, where he became part of the 4th Training Battalion staff. He remained in this role until early March 1918, when he rejoined his battalion in France. Later that month, the Germans launched their spring offensive, and the 16th Battalion was involved in defensive battles which helped bring the German offensive to a stop. On the 4th of July, the 16th Battalion took part in the successful attack on the village of Hamel and the nearby Hamel and Vere Wood. Having helped capture Hamel, the battalion suffered 13 men killed, one of whom was George Ball. He had been standing with his mates on the jump-off line in the pre-dawn hours when he was hit in the stomach, most likely by shrapnel from a German shell. He was killed instantly. He was 28 years old. Ball was initially laid to rest in the Hamlet Communal Cemetery. After the war, his remains were reinterred to the Villers-Bretonneux military cemetery. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Corporal George Ball, MM, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director and staff, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We particularly appreciate your visit despite the challenges posed by COVID and wish you all a very pleasant evening.